What if the real royal prison isn't behind palace gates, but right inside Meghan Markle's Montecito mansion? Shocking new claims from neighbors in Meghan and Harry's elite California enclave are painting a disturbing picture behind the scenes. Multiple sources allege Prince Harry is being emotionally sidelined, treated more like a ghost than a husband, and their children, Archie and Lilibet, are kept so isolated they've never once been seen playing with other local kids. Even more chilling? Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother, is said to be the quiet force running the household and possibly running Harry's life. Is this the final unraveling of the Sussex fairy tale? Stay with us. We've gathered exclusive details, local eyewitness accounts, and insider whispers that expose a royal reality you were never meant to see. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It was a crisp California morning, the kind of day that usually signals comfort, privacy, and status in the sleepy luxury of Montecito. Lush gardens glistened under the sun, hummingbirds flickered through palm trees, and the winding streets remained quiet, eerily so. But behind the hedges and Spanish-tiled gates of one particular estate, a growing unease had taken root. Not among its owners, but among the neighbors. Where are the kids? The question didn't start loud. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even asked directly at first. It began in whispers, exchanged between wealthy housewives at morning Pilates, murmured at the local organic cafe by baristas who'd served the same almond milk lattes to Harry and Meghan a dozen times, never once seeing a stroller in tow. The question echoed softly through the walls of Montecito's tranquility until it became too loud to ignore. Why has no one, none of the neighborhood children, none of the local mothers, not even the elderly dog walkers, seen Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's children? Why do the gates remain closed on Halloween? Why does the local Montessori school have no mention of Archie or Lilibet on its enrollment list? And perhaps most chilling of all, why do those living closest to the Sussexes speak not of joy, but of control, silence, and the strange isolation of a prince who once represented youth, rebellion, and vulnerability? This story isn't just about absence. It's about patterns. It's about the widening chasm between what the public is told and what private citizens close to the royal renegades have started to notice. This story is also about Harry, once the most emotionally open royal in history, who now, according to his own neighbors, seems guarded, withdrawn, and perhaps even mistreated in the very home he helped build. Tonight, we investigate the chilling claims emerging from Montecito. That Meghan Markle and her mother, Doria Ragland, have allegedly isolated Prince Harry from his own children, from the neighborhood, and potentially even from reality itself. At the center of this drama are Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana, two royal children who, if their parents' carefully crafted narrative is to be believed, are growing up away from the spotlight for their own protection. But according to those who live mere feet away from the Sussex estate, that protection may be a cover for something darker, something unnatural. In this report, we'll take you into the lush, tight-knit world of Montecito and hear what the neighbors have to say. We'll explore the timeline of events, or rather, the absence of events, surrounding Archie and Lilibet's supposed upbringing. We'll trace Harry's public appearances and how his demeanor has seemingly changed since the couple's dramatic exit from royal duties. We'll ask hard questions about Doria Ragland's role, not as a doting grandmother, but as a potential enforcer in a household that some say feels more like a gated fortress than a family home. But most importantly, we'll ask, is Prince Harry truly happy? And if not, why has no one stepped in? Because while the press has often focused on Meghan's media deals, fashion statements, and calculated interviews, the reality inside those Montecito walls remains deeply hidden. And now, the people closest in proximity to the Sussexes, their very neighbors, are beginning to speak out. It all began with a simple observation. Meghan and Harry never showed up to the neighborhood Halloween walk. That might sound trivial, but in a community like Montecito, where celebrity status doesn't exempt anyone from parenting norms, that raised eyebrows. It's not that they didn't come with their kids, one neighbor reportedly remarked. It's that they never come at all, and no one has ever seen those kids. Ever. Soon after, other stories began surfacing. The elderly woman across the road, who walks her dogs at dawn every day, shared that in 3 years, she'd never seen toys in the yard, heard children's voices, or noticed anything that might suggest the presence of toddlers. Another resident said that during a block party organized in 2022, an event that brought together almost every household on the street, the Sussexes declined to attend, citing family obligations. But no one in the neighborhood has ever met the children those obligations supposedly involve. The whisper snowballed. Gardeners began to comment. Local delivery drivers. Even a few staff at nearby wellness spas. You never see the kids. You never hear them, one staffer allegedly shared. It's just odd. What makes these claims especially alarming is how carefully crafted Meghan and Harry's public image of domestic bliss has been. From Netflix documentaries to carefully choreographed magazine spreads, the world has been shown glimpses of a loving, multicultural family growing up with chickens and rescue dogs. And yet, the people closest to that reality, those who live beside it, insist that it simply doesn't add up. And now, as tensions within the royal family remain unresolved, questions about the Sussexes' family life are starting to collide with deeper suspicions. There's a growing narrative, shared in hushed tones and online forums, that Prince Harry is not only isolated but possibly mistreated under the influence of both his wife and his mother-in-law. Stories have emerged that Doria Ragland, often portrayed as a calm and grounding force, may be exercising subtle but firm control behind closed doors. And it is Prince Harry, once fiercely independent, who appears to be retreating further into the shadows. The neighbors, once determined to remain discreet, have reportedly reached a point of concern. Not about royalty, fame, or gossip, but about humanity. What happens when the person who once symbolized healing and openness becomes the ghost of the neighborhood? What happens when children no one sees are held up as symbols of a new kind of monarchy? The answers may lie not in the tabloids, but in the soft-spoken community members who have quietly watched the unfolding drama from a distance of only a few yards. Over the next several chapters, we'll explore first-hand accounts, timelines of absence, psychological insights, and chilling inconsistencies that have led many to believe something is deeply wrong in the Montecito mansion. We'll investigate what kind of mistreatment neighbors believe Prince Harry may be enduring. And we'll revisit the question that started it all, the one whispered through yoga classes, coastal walks, and security gates alike. Where are the children? What kind of mother guards her children so closely that even those living just steps away remain total strangers to them? What kind of household raises more questions with each passing season? And most urgently, what has really happened to Prince Harry? Stay with us as we unfold the pieces of a royal mystery that may have been hiding in plain sight all along. Nestled along California's stunning central coast, Montecito has long stood as a symbol of exclusivity, refinement, and retreat from the chaos of the outside world. Flanked by rolling hills and kissed by the ocean breeze, this idyllic enclave promises not just privacy, but seclusion so absolute, even the most famous of faces can walk its sun-dappled lanes unnoticed. Oprah lives here. Ellen DeGeneres, too. Gwyneth Paltrow's sprawling estate isn't far. Yet none of these stars have provoked quite the same brand of speculation and unease as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle purchased their $14 million estate in 2020, complete with rose gardens, a chicken coop, and enough hedges to hide a motorcade, headlines called it a fresh start. For Meghan, it was a return to her Southern California roots. For Harry, it was a bold declaration of independence from the British royal family. For many watching from the outside, this Montecito move looked like the final piece in the couple's escape plan: fame without scrutiny, family life without intrusion. To their new neighbors, however, the Sussexes brought something different. Not the neighborly charm many in the Montecito community are accustomed to, but a kind of quiet tension. A distance not just of walls and fences, but of spirit. In a neighborhood known for wellness retreats, weekly farmers markets, and neighborhood barbecues, most high-profile residents participate with surprising ease. Oprah's chef drops in to cook at local fundraisers. Jennifer Aniston has been spotted grabbing green juice near the coast. Even Hollywood's elite attend parent meetings at local private schools. In Montecito, fame and community are not mutually exclusive, they are intertwined. People know how to be famous and friendly. Which is why the Sussexes' stark absence from nearly every community function raised eyebrows almost immediately. Initially, neighbors were understanding. After all, the couple had just weathered the most explosive royal exit in modern history. Security concerns, media attention, and the birth of Lilibet Diana in 2021 gave them legitimate reasons to keep their gates shut. But as months turned into years, and the gates remained sealed shut, questions began to surface. In an estate where outdoor space abounds and the weather invites one outside nearly year-round, neighbors noticed an absence of the sounds most associated with family life. No laughter of small children playing in the garden. No backyard birthday parties. No school buses pulling up. No afternoon walks with strollers. No signs, visible or audible, that children were growing up inside. Montecito is not a place where one hides easily. The estates are expansive, yes, but they are part of a broader ecosystem. Gardeners, delivery drivers, pool maintenance workers, dog walkers, all share information, even if unintentionally. They witness routines. They absorb atmospheres. Over time, these observations build into quiet truths the rest of the world might never see. One housekeeper for a nearby estate recalled that she had worked in 3 Montecito homes over the last 5 years and often interacted with security or staff from neighboring properties. We usually see signs, diapers being delivered, kids' meals, school drop-offs, but never from that house. It's always so sterile, like a display home. Another longtime local, a woman in her 60s who asked to remain anonymous, noted how even the daily rhythm seemed off. You walk by other homes and see little signs of life, chalk drawings on driveways, tricycles tipped over on the lawn, backpacks hanging by the door. You never see that there. It's as though the house is occupied by adults who want it to look like a family lives there, but don't want anyone to hear or feel that reality. The absence of visible childlike activity would not be enough on its own to stir such deep suspicions, except that the Sussexes had presented their family as a central narrative in their public journey. From their Oprah interview, where Meghan spoke of motherhood and mental health, to the Netflix docuseries, which showed home footage of Archie's chicken coop adventures, the couple had gone to great lengths to establish themselves as a modern, progressive, child-centered household. But the carefully curated visuals didn't match what those living within eyeshot experienced on a daily basis. As word spread among the local community, patterns began to emerge. Parents whose children attended elite schools nearby noted that Archie and Lilibet were not enrolled. No one had ever spotted Meghan or Harry at pickup lines. Teachers at prestigious preschools in the region denied any knowledge of the royal children on their rosters. In a community that takes pride in education and where name-dropping is almost second nature, the absence of these children from academic circles raised alarms. "We all talk," said one Montecito father who's worked in education. "When someone new enrolls, especially someone famous, word gets around." But there was never any chatter about Archie or Lilibet joining any program, Montessori, Waldorf, bilingual immersion, nothing. It's not normal. More questions arose after public holidays passed without a trace of the Sussex children participating in community events. Halloween in Montecito is a big deal. A parade of costumed children led by local fire trucks, block parties complete with organic candy, and parents dressed as superheroes or wizards. Meghan and Harry never attended. No sight of Archie as a tiny prince or Lilibet as a toddler in a pumpkin costume. No photos surfaced. No stories. Just silence. Then came the 4th of July, where neighbors lined the streets with American flags and children played in bounce houses or waved sparklers. Again, the Sussex estate was silent. Some suggested it was out of respect for Harry's British roots. But even that excuse rang hollow in a community where culture and celebration blend seamlessly. And yet, the mystery isn't just in what's missing. It's in what is present. Prince Harry himself, seen often alone. Locals describe him as distant, distracted, and quiet. He's been spotted hiking in solitude, visiting local shops with a bodyguard but no family. His presence is always brief, transactional. Some have suggested he appears lost, as if he's living a life that feels disconnected from the man he once was. "He doesn't look like someone living a fairy tale," one neighbor commented. "He looks like someone trapped in a very expensive box." While Harry's demeanor alone doesn't confirm suspicions about the children, it adds to a growing portrait of isolation and control that concerns many of his neighbors. In Montecito, where family outings and open-air parenting are the norm, the Sussexes' total reclusiveness stands out as more than unusual. It's troubling. Add to this the increasing whispers that Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother and longtime ally, is often present and plays an outsized role in the household dynamic. Some residents say that when Meghan is traveling, Doria seems to step into the role of gatekeeper, further shielding Harry from outside contact. These reports remain speculative, but the consistency across sources gives them weight. As the story of Montecito unfolds, one thing becomes increasingly clear: the illusion of a perfect, sun-drenched royal exile is just that, an illusion. Behind the beautiful bougainvillea and the security-guarded gates, a mystery persists. A family that claims to want peace and normalcy has, by many accounts, created an environment that feels sterile, opaque, and unnaturally quiet. And now, as more neighbors begin to speak out, anonymously, cautiously, but persistently, the world outside is starting to ask the same questions. Where are the children? Why is Prince Harry so rarely seen with them? And why does this beautiful Montecito mansion feel less like a family home and more like a fortress? The streets of Montecito are polished, but they are not mute. And though privacy reigns supreme in this lush corner of Southern California, whispers still travel. It's often through these murmurs that the first cracks in carefully curated images begin to surface. For the Sussexes, whose every move is crafted for global consumption, the neighbors' whispers have become the most potent threat to their public facade. The whispers didn't start with scandal. In fact, they began with concern. Small observations, shared softly, almost in disbelief, gradually spiraled into a pattern too peculiar to ignore. One of the first noticeable red flags came from a woman named Carol Asterisk, a longtime Montecito resident whose home sits across the narrow cul-de-sac from Harry and Meghan's estate. Known in the neighborhood for her immaculate rose garden and friendly demeanor, Carol had long held a neutral attitude toward the famous newcomers. But over time, that shifted. "I've lived here through a lot. Movie stars, politicians, billionaires," she said. "They all eventually come around. They join the garden club, they attend school galas, they introduce their kids. But with Meghan and Harry, it's like they don't want to exist in this community. It's not just privacy. It feels like quarantine." Carol's housekeeper noticed it first. On multiple occasions, she observed Meghan's car pull into the driveway followed by security vehicles. But never once, she claimed, did she see a car seat, a stroller, a diaper bag, or the usual signs of traveling with children. The few times she did glimpse Harry, she said he seemed preoccupied, never with a child in his arms, never in conversation, but always looking downward, detached. Then came the Halloween event in 2021, widely known throughout the area as Pumpkin Night. Neighbors transformed their driveways into candy stations, children dressed as unicorns and pirates, and parents sipped hot cider while walking the circular neighborhood route. Every single home on the lane participated, except one. "It wasn't that they just didn't show," said Jeremy Asterisk, a father of two who lives 2 doors down. "It was the fact that there was no indication of anything happening there. No lights, no music, no decorations. We thought maybe they were out of town, but the security team was there. The lights were on inside. They were home, just silent." That silence continued into 2022. For nearly a year, there were no public sightings of the children, no playdates with nearby families, no participation in community events like the Montecito Art Walk or the Family Beach Day hosted by a local wellness club. According to multiple residents, even staff members at those events, when asked whether the Sussex family had RSVP'd or shown up, responded with polite chuckles. They don't do that sort of thing. The estrangement became more unsettling when rumors emerged that Harry had begun taking solo walks around the perimeter of the estate, sometimes at dusk. One neighbor recalled seeing him on 3 consecutive evenings, earbuds in, hood up, walking without company, without a stroller, without even a glance to passerby. "He looked haunted," she said, "like someone pacing, not strolling." Another layer to the concern stemmed from Meghan's podcast appearances. During her Archetypes series, she frequently referenced her children, their routines, their joys. She described bath time and reading stories of Archie's love for certain books. But every story felt oddly disconnected, void of emotion, almost rehearsed. Neighbors who listened to the podcast began to notice a sharp contrast between these accounts and what they were observing firsthand. If you're telling stories about your child but no one sees your child, not at the store, not on walks, not at school, it creates an inconsistency that gnaws at you, said a retired psychologist who lives nearby. It's not that we want to invade their privacy. It's that the narratives don't align with A. One of the most telling stories came from a young mother, Emily Asterisk, who moved into the neighborhood in 2022 with her 2 toddlers. Seeking a playgroup, she canvassed the nearby homes with invitations for a tiny explorer's backyard play date. She included Meghan and Harry's estate in her round of invites, leaving a handwritten note at the gate. No reply came. Weeks later, during a stroll with her children, she passed by and saw Meghan's SUV backing out of the driveway. Emily waved, trying to make a friendly connection. She claims Meghan glanced at her but made no acknowledgement. I didn't expect a full-blown chat, Emily said. But she looked through me. I got the sense that even if her kids were inside that house, they weren't part of this world. There was no effort to bond or build community. Over time, this pattern gave rise to one of the most pressing questions being quietly passed among Montecito families. Do Archie and Lilibet even live here full-time? The absence of childlike activity, combined with the tightly controlled narratives, sparked theories that the children may not be raised in the house as claimed, or at all. A particularly controversial comment came from a local delivery driver who services most of the gated communities in Montecito. Speaking off the record, he said, "I've delivered to every home here. Diapers, formula, kids' clothes. Meghan and Harry's place? Never. Not once. Just organic teas, essential oils, candles, and fitness stuff." Makes you wonder. The community's shared discomfort wasn't rooted in hate. In fact, many residents had once supported the Sussexes' decision to escape royal pressures. But as time went on, and the household remained eerily still, the support turned into concern, and concern began to breed suspicion. And then there was Doria Ragland. Doria's presence was originally seen as stabilizing. As Meghan's only close family member in the picture, her role as maternal support was viewed positively. But according to a growing number of residents and insiders, her influence within the household may be far more extensive than imagined. "She's always there," said one neighbor. "Sometimes she's the only one you see come and go from the property. She moves like someone in charge, not like a guest." Some of the household staff who spoke on the condition of anonymity described Doria as assertive, vigilant, and very protective of Meghan, sometimes to the point of exclusion. One staff member recounted an instance where Harry was seen standing in the kitchen, visibly agitated, during what sounded like a disagreement. Doria was the one talking, they claimed, not Meghan, and Harry wasn't being listened to. Even Harry's few outings with friends, neighbors say, have slowed. Where once he would be spotted grabbing coffee or biking near Butterfly Beach, those sightings have become rare. When he is seen, it's often accompanied by a security detail, head down, lips tight. "He looks more like a guard than a husband," one neighbor remarked. And so the whispers have grown. That Meghan controls access. That Doria manages the house. That Archie and Lilibet are more characters in a royal narrative than children in a real home. And most painfully, that Prince Harry, the once beloved rebel royal, is now a prisoner in his own palace. The residents of Montecito don't make these claims lightly. Many of them are people who've lived through decades of celebrity drama, tabloid misfires, and PR manipulation. They don't feed rumors, they notice patterns. And in this case, the pattern has become impossible to ignore. The whispers have turned into questions. The questions have turned into worry. And worry has turned into stories, the kind that don't come from tabloids or social media, but from morning jogs, grocery aisle encounters, and quiet conversations across hedges. Because here in Montecito, where wealth meets wisdom, people understand that silence can be louder than sound. In the heart of Montecito's scenic sprawl, where luxury is whispered rather than screamed, Prince Harry is slowly becoming something of a phantom, a man once famous for his boldness and public presence now reduced to glimpses, murmurs, and speculation. His transformation from the cheeky, defiant spare of the British royal family into a quiet, reclusive figure has not gone unnoticed. In fact, among Montecito residents, it's become one of the most frequently whispered topics behind closed doors. When Harry first arrived in the U.S. with Meghan Markle in 2020, the public watched as he transitioned from uniformed royal to California civilian. He swapped the regalia of Buckingham Palace for button-downs and baseball caps, traded in royal engagements for podcasts and documentary deals, and attempted to cultivate an image of domestic bliss and personal growth. In public interviews, he spoke of therapy, of healing, of being a better father. But the man the world saw on camera seemed, at best, curated. At worst, scripted. Neighbors in Montecito quickly noticed a gap between the image and the reality. "He's not living like someone who found peace," said a local fitness instructor who claimed to have seen Harry several times in town. "He's living like someone trying not to be seen." That observation echoed what many began to report. Sightings of Harry walking alone along the trails of Innisbrook or taking brief, unsmiling solo bike rides down the Montecito lanes. Often flanked by a single bodyguard or wearing sunglasses and hooded sweatshirts, Harry's physical posture seemed to speak volumes. Head low, shoulders slightly hunched, always brisk, always distant. He used to nod at people, noted one elderly resident who walks the neighborhood daily. Now, he walks like he doesn't want anyone to even recognize him. Even more unsettling was his increasing absence. Residents who used to see him at local stores, organic markets, or even walking near Butterfly Beach said his appearances have grown infrequent, to the point where some question whether he's even living in the house full-time anymore. There's a strange emptiness to that estate, one gardener said. When Harry's around, it still feels like there's a presence, a hum. When he's not, it feels like a set. Pretty, but lifeless. Speculation increased when reports surfaced that Harry had begun spending more time away from home, allegedly staying in hotel suites or guest properties when tensions inside the Montecito mansion grew too high. These whispers were further fueled by paparazzi photos from various California cities showing Harry alone. No Meghan, no children, just security and distance. There was a photo of him in San Diego, said a royal blogger who tracks Sussex sightings. He was at a military event. No Meghan. No mention of Archie or Lilibet. It felt staged, like he was sent to keep up appearances. The idea of Harry as an emotionally isolated figure is not new. Even during his time as a senior royal, he often spoke about feeling trapped within the institution. But what Montecito neighbors and casual observers alike have found troubling is that in seeking freedom, Harry appears to have traded one kind of control for another, one with less tradition but perhaps more emotional manipulation. He looks like a man who's trying to keep it all together, said a former Montecito house staffer who had worked near the Sussex estate. You get the sense that he doesn't call the shots in that household. He's present, but not powerful. Sources also hinted at a growing reliance on outside comforts, late-night video gaming, binge-watching television, and prolonged hours in isolation. A tech delivery person once mentioned that the Sussex household had received multiple high-end gaming systems and virtual reality accessories, orders typically associated with solo escapism rather than family bonding. You don't buy 4 VR headsets for a family with toddlers, the delivery person said. It's more like a man building his own escape pod. But perhaps the most haunting accounts come from those who say Harry doesn't just seem absent, he feels gone. His energy, once rebellious and fiery, now appears dimmed. In the rare moments Meghan and Harry do appear in public together, such as speaking engagements or gala events, Harry's body language has become a subject of intense scrutiny. Behavioral analysts and psychologists have commented on his withdrawn posture, his lack of eye contact, and the frequency with which he defers to Meghan during interviews or panel discussions. He rarely speaks first, noted a body language expert during a recent broadcast. When he does, he often looks to Meghan first, as if for approval. This power dynamic has become glaring to even casual observers. Meghan often takes the lead in conversations, in branding, and in public interactions. Harry, once known for spontaneous humor and rogue commentary, now speaks with rehearsed precision or remains nearly silent. A source familiar with the couple's publicist team claimed that Harry's scripts are often pre-written, vetted, and timed down to the second before any appearance. He's not winging it anymore, the source said. He's reciting. And sometimes, you can see it in his eyes, he hates it. Back in Montecito, neighbors say that the few times Harry is spotted engaging with the public, his demeanor is that of a man enduring, not enjoying. He doesn't exude joy, one local bookstore owner said. He comes in occasionally, buys something, says thanks, but his smile never reaches his eyes. It's like he's running on low battery. Compounding this image is the absence of Harry with his children. In a neighborhood where parents are often seen taking strolls with toddlers, engaging in outdoor crafts with kids, or stopping by community cafes with little ones in tow, Harry has never been seen publicly interacting with Archie or Lilibet. No school runs, no park outings, no trips to the beach, said a private tutor in the area. If he's parenting those children, it's happening entirely behind closed doors. And that's rare for a place like this. So where is Prince Harry, truly? He's not in the public the way he once was. He's not part of the neighborhood community. He's not visibly involved in local parenting circles. And if the whispers are to be believed, he's not even emotionally present in his own household. Some neighbors, initially empathetic to his plight as a man torn between two worlds, now express quiet sorrow. We wanted him to find happiness here, one retired attorney said. But all we see is someone who's fading. The image of Harry as the vanishing man doesn't just speak to his physical reclusion, but to the emotional distance he seems to carry everywhere he goes. A man who once broke royal rules with reckless glee is now living within a fortress more impenetrable than the palace he fled. His absence, his silence, and his increasingly scripted public appearances speak to a man who may no longer recognize the life he once dreamed of. In Montecito, where stories are told through subtle details, the tale of Prince Harry is not one of rebellion or reinvention, it is one of erasure. In a world obsessed with celebrity offspring from paparazzi-chased baby carriages to viral toddler moments, the invisibility of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's two children, Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana, has stirred more than just curiosity. It has spawned suspicion, fueled conspiracy, and now, thanks to testimonies from within their own elite neighborhood, raised chilling questions about whether these children live the life we've all been led to believe. When the Duke and Duchess of Sussex first announced the birth of their son Archie in 2019, the reaction was explosive. Global headlines, commemorative memorabilia, and endless media commentary celebrated the arrival of the first biracial child born into the British royal family. And yet, from the very beginning, something was amiss. Unlike traditional royal births, there was no hospital photo on the steps. There was no parade of family members coming to visit. No professional baby photos emerged until weeks later, highly edited, carefully staged, and lacking the candid warmth typical of newborn announcements. Instead of joy, the media and public were met with secrecy, barriers, and heavily curated content. Fast forward to their move to Montecito, and that cloud of secrecy only thickened. In a neighborhood teeming with young families, it is routine to see children playing in front yards, riding scooters on sidewalks, and attending exclusive private schools and playgroups. But according to multiple Montecito residents, some of whom live just a stone's throw away from the Sussex estate, not once have they seen Archie or Lilibet outdoors. Not once have they seen the children in strollers, playing with other neighborhood kids, or even being carried in or out of a car. "I walk my dog twice a day," said a local resident who lives on a neighboring lane. "I've seen gardeners, security, and Meghan once or twice. Never the kids. Not once." This odd absence, over a period of several years, has not gone unnoticed. Even parents at the area's most prestigious private schools, those where tuition soars past $30,000 a year and celebrity children often attend under aliases, have begun to question whether Archie and Lilibet are enrolled anywhere at all. "I have 2 kids enrolled at Santa Barbara Montessori Academy," shared a father who asked to remain anonymous. "We've seen the Afflecks, the Paltrow kids, even children of politicians, but never the Sussex kids. Not even listed under pseudonyms, to my knowledge. So where are they?" A growing chorus of insiders and neighbors have begun to question whether the children are being raised full-time by Harry and Meghan at all, or whether they were part of a broader image campaign. Some have gone as far as to suggest the possibility of surrogacy arrangements, or even that the children are borrowed for photo ops, a theory once considered too outlandish for mainstream discussion but now earning whispers in Montecito circles. One of the strongest pieces of anecdotal evidence comes from Meghan's now infamous podcast interview with MEGHAN. During a casual segment of their conversation, Emma reportedly asked if she could say hello to the kids, perhaps to Archie, who was mentioned earlier in the episode. According to sources familiar with the unedited podcast recording, Meghan paused, then gave an awkward laugh, and redirected the conversation without answering the request. "It was the strangest thing," said a producer who worked on the show. "She'd been talking about the kids as if they were right there, within earshot. But the moment Emma asked to meet them, Meghan shut down. Not angrily, but like she hadn't expected to be asked. It was a small moment, a blink. But for those already watching closely, it was the confirmation they didn't know they needed. A pattern soon emerged. In Meghan's frequent interviews, whether with Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah Winfrey, or podcast hosts, she references her children often. She discusses their supposed quirks, milestones, and daily routines. But unlike most parents, especially celebrity ones, she never shares live moments, spontaneous anecdotes, or off-the-cuff stories that feel lived in. It's always rehearsed, polished, and oddly generic. She talks about motherhood like someone who read about it, said a veteran parenting columnist, not like someone living it. Even the children's milestones, birthdays, christenings, and holidays have raised eyebrows. Their birthday photos are tightly cropped, lacking context, and often shared through blurry black and white filters. Their christening, which took place in the UK, was famously private. So private, in fact, that even senior royal family members weren't included. More curious still are the few photos of Archie and Lilibet that have been released. Analysts have noted inconsistencies in lighting, facial proportions, and settings that suggest post-production alterations or composite imagery. One digital forensics expert who analyzed the released birthday photo of Lilibet claimed the shadows and light direction didn't match across the image. "It looks like 3 different lighting sources," he said, which makes no sense for an outdoor photo. Then there are the neighbors. Time and again, residents of Montecito have shared similar accounts. They've seen Doria, they've seen Meghan, and on rare occasions, they've seen Harry, but never the children. Not at school functions, not at community fairs, not at holiday events, and not in day-to-day life. The Montecito Library held a Halloween story time last October, said a volunteer. Every family in the area came with kids. Some even flew in from LA for it. But not a whisper from the Sussex household. You'd think, given their supposed commitment to community and childhood literacy, it'd be a perfect match. But nope. For many, the most disquieting element is not the children's absence, but the illusion of their presence. Meghan and Harry have built much of their post-royal brand on being hands-on, intentional parents. They've signed multi-million-dollar deals with Spotify, Netflix, and Penguin Random House, citing their desire to tell stories for the next generation. They speak endlessly about breaking toxic cycles for their kids and creating a peaceful life in California. And yet, for all the talk of their children, the children themselves remain phantoms. In an age where even the most privacy-conscious celebrities eventually offer authentic glimpses into their family life, the Sussex model stands apart, an eerie blend of exposure and concealment. Some insiders now question whether the children live elsewhere full-time, perhaps under the care of private nannies or even family members. Others wonder if the Sussexes co-parent in shifts, or that the children appear for photos and holidays but not in daily life. And others, still, are beginning to ask a far darker question. What if the image of the Sussex children is entirely constructed? This line of thought was once the realm of conspiracy theorists. But as more inconsistencies surface, even rational observers are forced to admit something doesn't add up. One local columnist wrote in a recent editorial, "We aren't demanding to see the children. We're asking why the version of reality we're given doesn't match the world around us." And when public figures build their empire on authenticity, they owe us more than fiction. This disconnect is starting to erode trust. Former friends of the couple have remained conspicuously silent on the children. Photos that allegedly include Archie and Lilibet are vague and strategically cropped. Invitations to exclusive child-centered events have been routinely declined by the Sussex household without explanation. And while Harry and Meghan continue to reference their children's emotional well-being and future as the cornerstone of their life choices, the very public they speak to is left with nothing but shadows. As one neighbor summed up bluntly, you can't claim to raise kids in a community where no one's ever seen them. As these contradictions mount, the pressure is growing, not just from Montecito residents, but from the world at large. What began as curiosity has turned into investigation. What was once accepted as privacy now reeks of orchestration. And the fairy tale image is starting to unravel. Doria Ragland entered the public's consciousness as the quiet, composed mother of Meghan Markle. When she appeared beside her daughter at the royal wedding in 2018, millions were struck by her serene presence, understated elegance, and dignified solitude. Seated alone among a sea of royals, she became an instant media fascination. In that moment, many assumed Doria was simply a private woman thrust unwillingly into global attention. But 5 years later, in the exclusive, star-studded enclave of Montecito, a very different image of Doria is starting to surface, one shaped not by official photos or curated interviews, but by the whispers of neighbors, former staff, and those who've had direct brushes with the Sussex household. And the image is not that of a passive observer or detached grandmother, but of a woman with quiet yet considerable control. Multiple sources close to the Sussex estate say that Doria has not merely lived with the couple intermittently, but has embedded herself in the household structure. From overseeing domestic staff to managing schedules and even allegedly playing a role in security and privacy decisions, Doria's influence appears far-reaching. She's not just Meghan's mother, she's her consigliere, said one source familiar with internal dynamics. When Meghan needs something done, it's often Doria who communicates it to staff or to Harry. That level of involvement isn't inherently problematic, especially in a multi-generational household. But what has caused eyebrows to rise in Montecito is the tone of Doria's presence, one not of gentle guidance, but quiet control. Multiple former employees have spoken, anonymously, of her sharp tone, disciplinary approach to household staff, and a particular intolerance for anything perceived as disloyal or subpar. "She doesn't scream, but her voice carries weight," said one former nanny. "If Doria disapproves of something, it gets corrected immediately. She doesn't need to raise her voice. Her authority is unspoken." More controversially, several sources allege that Doria has inserted herself into the relationship dynamics between Meghan and Harry, particularly when tensions run high. According to insiders, during key decision-making moments, whether about the children, business negotiations, or public image, Doria's opinion often supersedes Harry's. "She knows her daughter better than anyone, and she knows how to protect the brand," said a source who once worked on a joint project with the Sussex team. Doria is the quiet gatekeeper. Nothing gets to Meghan or from Meghan without her filtering it first. This observation became most pronounced during a period when Harry reportedly tried to initiate reconciliation talks with members of the royal family. According to multiple leaks, Harry had attempted to speak directly to his father, King Charles, and his brother William. However, these conversations were either blocked or quickly dismantled, something insiders suggest Doria played a pivotal role in. "She views the royal family as toxic," said a former household advisor, "and she's very protective of Meghan's mental space. Any attempt Harry makes to reconnect with the family is subtly discouraged, not with threats, but with reminders. Remember how they treated her. Remember the pain." She reinforces the division. Yet perhaps the most troubling allegations involve Doria's interactions with Harry himself. A neighbor who lives just 3 houses down from the Sussex estate recalled an unsettling exchange. "One day, I overheard raised voices from their property. It wasn't Meghan. It was Doria. She was saying something like, 'You owe her everything. Don't forget that.' And then silence. It gave me chills." Harry's apparent withdrawal from public life, emotional flatness in interviews, and growing dependence on structured, approved messaging has prompted speculation that he isn't just being managed by Meghan, but also by his mother-in-law. Some insiders refer to this trio as the triangle, where Meghan is the central point, Harry is the dependent arm, and Doria is the stabilizing, but guiding force. And within this triangle, Doria is the quiet strategist. Her background as a social worker and yoga instructor offers a calming public narrative, but those who've observed her closely describe a woman far more sharp, strategic, and boundary-enforcing than her resume suggests. Several Montecito locals have even begun to nickname her the Silent CEO. One local store owner shared a curious interaction. "She came in once alone to pick up a gift basket. I said something kind about Harry and how we hoped he was adjusting. She gave me a look, not hostile, just very clear, and said, 'Harry's doing what's best for this family. He's strong when he needs to be.' Then she smiled, paid, and left. But the message stuck with me. She was letting me know he's not the one in charge." Former security personnel who have rotated through the Sussex estate noted that while Meghan may be the public face of control, Doria is the internal constant, keeping the daily machine running. One security staff member recounted how Doria had final say on certain aspects of the children's activities, staff schedules, and even controlled which friends or acquaintances could visit the property. But where does this control leave Prince Harry? According to insiders, it leaves him isolated, pacified, and slowly molded. What began as a move toward freedom and mental wellness has turned into a carefully managed lifestyle, where his support system is singular, filtered, and loyalty-driven. Any outside voices, be it friends from the UK, former military colleagues, or even well-meaning neighbors, are met with hesitation or outright dismissal. And in this system, Doria is a gatekeeper. "She doesn't have to be cruel," said one Montecito resident. "She's smart. She uses silence, distance. She makes herself necessary. And once someone like that is entrenched, they're not going anywhere." Even those closest to Meghan say that Doria is more involved than people realize in public image decisions. From overseeing wardrobe choices to sitting in on Zoom meetings related to their various content deals, Doria ensures the Markle brand remains tight, consistent, and most of all, unquestioned. "She's the one person Meghan listens to without argument," said a former stylist. "Everyone else gets challenged, but not Doria. If Doria says it's not a good look, it's changed immediately." As questions mount about the children, the strained state of Harry's public presence, and the couple's increasingly defensive tone in interviews, attention is shifting, not just to Meghan, but to the woman in the background, the one who stood alone at that royal wedding but may now wield more quiet power than anyone could have guessed. Is Doria Ragland the supportive mother simply trying to shield her daughter and grandchildren from a brutal world? Or is she a carefully composed architect of the Sussex household, pulling strings with precision while shielding herself in soft silence? Either way, it's clear, her role is no longer secondary. And as the threads of illusion begin to fray, Doria may be the key figure holding the entire narrative together. Nestled in the hills of Southern California, Montecito is known for its privacy, luxury, and high-profile residents. With sprawling estates hidden behind towering hedges and ivy-covered gates, it's a place where billionaires, Hollywood elites, and tech moguls coexist quietly. Yet even in this hush-hush community, whispers carry. And when those whispers are about Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, Doria Ragland, and their highly scrutinized household, they turn into quiet storms of speculation. Since the Duke and Duchess of Sussex relocated to Montecito in mid-2020, many locals welcomed them with warmth, intrigued to live near modern-day royalty. But over the years, that welcome has transformed into confusion and, in some cases, concern. According to over a dozen residents who either live near the couple or interact regularly within the community, the Sussex estate has remained an unusually closed-off presence. Unlike most neighbors in the area, who participate in seasonal events, support local businesses, and engage, albeit discreetly, with the community, the Sussex household is conspicuously absent. "I've lived here 15 years, said one resident. "We've had everyone from Oprah to Katy Perry show up at neighborhood barbecues or charity walks. But never Meghan and Harry. Not once." The first signs that something was different began with noise, specifically, a lack of it. Neighbors near the estate noted the eerie silence surrounding the home, especially considering it was allegedly home to 2 small children. "You can always tell when kids are in a house," said one woman who lives just down the hill. "There's laughter, bikes, strollers, toys in the yard. I've got grandkids, I know the sounds. But over there, it's quiet. Always." When questioned whether it could simply be extreme privacy or highly organized child-rearing, several neighbors pushed back. "Even the most private celebrities let their kids be kids," said a father of 3 whose children attend a local elite Montessori school. "You see the Clooneys, the Paltrows, they live their lives. Not flaunting it, but living it. With Harry and Meghan, it's like they're ghosts." Some suggested it wasn't just about privacy, it was about secrecy. Multiple community members pointed to an incident during a local 4th of July block event in 2022. The neighborhood, known for its inclusive celebrations, extended a formal invitation to the Sussexes. The reply came not from Meghan or Harry, but from their security detail, stating that due to private family obligations, they could not attend. That in itself wasn't unusual. What caught attention was that, later that day, a drone operator flying above the estate for personal photography noticed what appeared to be only Meghan, Doria, and 2 staff members at the property. No sign of children. No visible party. No indication of a private celebration. People just started asking, where are the kids? Were they out of town? With a nanny? Or somewhere else? One attendee of the event shared. These incidents began to pile up. An Easter hunt invitation in 2023? Politely declined. A local charity fundraiser for pediatric care? No response. A neighborhood baby wellness initiative? Ignored. And yet, through curated press releases and social media statements, the Sussexes continued to emphasize their commitment to children, family, and local involvement. "The contradiction is hard to ignore," said a board member for a Santa Barbara nonprofit. "It's one thing to keep your kids private. It's another thing to pretend they're fully integrated when that's just not what people are seeing." Beyond the absence of the children, concerns about how Harry is treated inside the estate have surfaced in alarming ways. A groundskeeper who worked adjacent to the Sussex estate described an unsettling encounter in mid-2022. "I was walking by on my lunch break when I heard arguing. A woman, either Meghan or her mom, was saying something like, 'Why do you need to talk to them again? Haven't we told you they don't care about you?' It was muffled, but I swear I heard Harry respond, 'They're my family, not yours.' Then it all went quiet. And 2 minutes later, a car came and pulled up, blocking the sidewalk. Security told me to move along." Others echo this idea, that Harry, once the fiery, independent royal, now appears subdued, even disconnected. "He shops at the same organic market I do," shared a woman in her 60s. "I've seen him a few times. He walks like someone who's not fully present. Head down. Always with someone. Like he's being chaperoned." She paused, then added, It's like he's not allowed to make choices anymore. And maybe he doesn't realize that. Several neighbors have also reported that Meghan's interaction with locals is, at best, distant and, at worst, dismissive. She rarely makes eye contact, almost never initiates conversation. On one occasion, according to an eyewitness at a community wine tasting, Meghan allegedly scolded a neighbor for asking how the kids were doing. It was innocent, the eyewitness explained. The woman said, "Oh, and how are Archie and Lily doing?" Meghan snapped, "We don't discuss our children in public." It just sucked the air out of the room. Another major talking point among Montecito residents is the heavy-handed security around the Sussex home. While celebrity security is expected, the lengths to which Harry and Meghan have gone to shield their estate are extreme. Cameras mounted high in trees. Security guards stationed in unmarked cars across multiple entrances. Drones are jammed. Motion detectors installed along the perimeters. All of it more reminiscent of a diplomatic compound than a family home. There's a difference between privacy and paranoia, said one former private security contractor. Their setup is defensive, not just protecting from fans, but from neighbors. They've built walls, literally and emotionally. Still, it is the children, or the absence thereof, that has stirred the deepest intrigue. A local preschool director, who has worked with several high-profile families in the area, confirmed that Archie and Lilibet have never been enrolled, not even for part-time or playgroup activities. You'd think, given their parents' advocacy for children's mental health and education, that they'd be active in that world. But we've never had an application. No outreach. Nothing. Not even an inquiry. The director went on to say that even the area's most private families engage in some way, whether through donations, guest speakers, or anonymous participation. The Sussexes, she claims, have done none of it. And so, speculation festers. "I'm not saying the kids don't exist," said a local physician. "I'm saying it's strange that no one's seen them, that they never attend anything, that the people who would have seen them haven't." The rumors have taken many forms. That Archie and Lilibet live full-time in a different state, that they're under the care of someone else, that they're only brought into the house when cameras roll, or more drastically, that the kids are borrowed, stand-ins, part of an illusion crafted to maintain public narrative and brand value. Whatever the truth is, Montecito is talking, quietly, carefully, but unmistakably. As one resident concluded, "You don't live in a neighborhood this small, this observant, and stay invisible unless you're trying to be. And if you're trying that hard to keep something hidden, it's usually because there's something to hide." When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced in early 2020 that they would step back from their royal duties, the world watched with fascination. For many, it was a modern fairy tale turning a brave new page. A prince and his bride breaking free from centuries-old institutions to forge their own path of independence, equality, and personal freedom. The narrative at the time was striking. Two young parents, beleaguered by tabloid abuse and institutional coldness, were courageously prioritizing their mental health and family over tradition and duty. But 5 years later, that shiny image has begun to dull. The more time passes, the more their story morphs from noble defiance to a tangled web of contradictions. What was framed as liberation now feels more like insulation. What once looked like protection now resembles manipulation. And what the world celebrated as a couple finding their voice now appears increasingly orchestrated, guarded, and performative. At the heart of this dramatic transformation lies the slow but undeniable erosion of trust between the Sussexes and the public. The story they told the world, on Oprah, in interviews, in documentaries, and in Harry's memoir Spare, has been dissected with relentless scrutiny. Discrepancies in timelines, exaggerations in anecdotes, and cherry-picked truths have cast long shadows over their credibility. Take, for example, their emphasis on financial independence. The couple declared they wanted to earn their own way, yet they immediately signed multi-million-dollar deals with Spotify, Netflix, and Penguin Random House, all leveraging their royal connections and insider access. Their production company, Archie, was launched as a beacon of social impact and storytelling, but years later, it has delivered only a handful of projects, many of which have been criticized for lacking substance. The Netflix docuseries was expected to be a raw, honest portrayal of their lives, but many critics argued it was heavily curated, emotionally manipulative, and strangely lacking in factual or behind-the-scenes revelation. Then there's the podcast debacle. Meghan's Archetypes series launched with great fanfare, but fizzled fast. Industry insiders alleged that several episodes were ghost-produced and that Meghan had limited engagement with guests beyond reading scripts and intros. Spotify eventually canceled the deal altogether, with one executive publicly stating the couple were grifters. And then, of course, there's the matter of the children. The world expected that Archie and Lilibet, both born in the United States, both symbolizing the couple's new life, would be celebrated with at least the same warmth and visibility as other royal offspring. Instead, their appearances have been rare, controlled, and often oddly staged. Their birthdays have passed without local parties, school enrollment remains a mystery, and recent revelations from podcast appearances and neighbor testimony suggest they may not even reside full-time with their parents. This stark absence raises pressing questions. Were Harry and Meghan selling a family image that doesn't match reality? Have they perpetuated a narrative of victimhood and parenthood to solidify a brand, rather than reflect their lived truth? The fairy tale facade began cracking further during high-profile public appearances. At the 2022 NAACP Image Awards, their speeches on social justice and family unity came under fire when former staffers and insiders hinted at internal tensions and a highly controlled PR strategy. Critics questioned whether their activism was genuine or simply another layer of their rebranding effort. And then came the unraveling of their inner circle. Early on, Meghan and Harry had built a tight, trusted team of advisors, friends, and collaborators. But over time, many have disappeared from public association. From former comms directors to nannies to producers, the exits have been swift and often unexplained. The phrase staff turnover has become a euphemism for what insiders describe as an environment of pressure, secrecy, and high expectations. Some former staff claim they were silenced through NDAs. Others suggest they were simply pushed out for asking the wrong questions. Questions about finances, inconsistencies, and, yes, the children. One former Archwell contractor put it plainly: there were things we weren't allowed to ask. Period. Now, as Doria Ragland's role grows more visible and authoritative within the household, and as Harry himself appears increasingly subdued, the original Escape from the Palace story feels more and more like a well-polished script. The villains were clearly drawn: the British press, Buckingham Palace, and an unnamed royal who allegedly made remarks about Archie's skin tone. The heroes? Meghan and Harry, portrayed as wounded but brave survivors of a toxic establishment. But if the narrative was about freedom, why is Harry often seen alone or escorted, rarely smiling, and avoiding candid interaction with the public? Why are the couple's financial dealings so opaque, their charitable endeavors so underwhelming, and their claims about their children met with more questions than answers? Even former supporters have begun to ask, were we sold a story, not a truth? A British royal historian summarized the situation aptly. They framed themselves as escaping the palace, but what if they simply built a new palace, with higher walls, tighter control, and fewer witnesses? That sentiment is echoed in Montecito, where neighbors remain baffled at the quiet estate on their street, the absence of giggling toddlers, the unusually stern household staff, and the sightings of Harry looking lost in his own home. What was once viewed as a rebellion against monarchy is now, for many, a reinvention of monarchy on their own terms, complete with titles, privacy demands, and a curated public image that leaves very little room for authenticity. In the end, the story of Meghan and Harry may not be about escape at all. It may be a cautionary tale of what happens when personal trauma, unresolved resentment, and celebrity ambition collide, and when the line between performance and reality blurs. The royal fairy tale was supposed to end with freedom, family, and peace. But what we're witnessing now looks more like a self-made monarchy trapped behind its own walls, where truth is carefully edited, allies disappear in silence, and the prince who once challenged the world now barely speaks at all. When public figures retreat from the world and surround themselves with carefully managed environments, it doesn't merely shield them from scrutiny. It begins to warp the lens through which they experience reality. This principle, deeply rooted in psychological studies of isolation and power dynamics, has been explored in institutions ranging from monarchies to Hollywood, and in modern times. Within tightly gated celebrity compounds like that of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in Montecito. In the case at hand, with whispers from neighbors hinting at eerie silences, absence of